The reality is Gen Zs and Millennials for years have been demanding a certain way to consume products. And the old traditional classic way from transactional ticketing is not the way. They're used to being able to allocate budget towards something and then gamify it to get the best deal. They're used to being able to commit to a subscription and understanding what the value is they're going to get out of that. And when you talk about community, the community side of experiential engagement is really, that's what it's all about. So when you talk to a millennial, they'd much rather spend their money on an experience than they would on a hard good.
Ed, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ravi, how are you? Glad to be here.
Yeah, really interesting to have you on because we went through multiple bookings to figure this out. But you're running festivalPass, and this is something I really have been following this trend towards how people are connecting online and staking together. So, jumping right into it, could you give us a quick bio of who you are and what festivalPass is?
Sure. I think every story has context to it. You don't just start a company just because, you had an idea in the middle of the night. For me, it's been a 20-year journey to get to this point in terms of companies I've had in the past and why it all made sense for doing something disruptive in the live event space today. So I was an investment banker up until 1999, left that to start my first e-commerce company in 99 called City Stuff. I sold that company in 2001 and then built a agency that was in the experiential marketing space. So when you think of live events, at the time, we would bring a lot of big brands to really interesting, cool live events, whether they're concerts or activations, film festivals, etc. During that time, we helped launch multiple film festivals, spent a lot of time up in Toronto at the Toronto Film Festival, amongst others. And we even owned one down in the Dominican Republic, happened to be owned by a Toronto resident and Canadian, the resort down in the DR. But fast forward a little bit, that's where I fell in love with live events overall. I then had a software as a service business, so I fully understood what subscription business meant. I sold that in 2014. And then for the last 5 or 6 years, I've had a data analytics company called Predict Analytics, still exists today. But we had spent a lot of time in the entertainment space. So we worked with a lot of companies like A&E Networks and AMC Networks, and up in your neck of the woods, Chorus Entertainment. We built out their underlying consumer data strategy. So I've had a lot of experience in data and the entertainment market. And during that time, you may have heard, at least in the States, a company called MoviePass. A lot of people have heard the rise and fall or the big triumph of and failure of what MoviePass became. But I spent some time there through my company as their interim chief data officer. So it gave me access to really get my hands on 3.5 million subscribers in a subscription company doing $500 million a year in revenue, and really understand what it all meant, and learned a lot of lessons of what to do, what not to do when you're building a subscription type of business. And a lot of that insight through all of those different companies led me to what we're doing today with festivalPass, where I believe, and the market, I think, is ripe for a new, innovative, disruptive model in live events. It's a $200 billion business, has a lot of players that, while there are some big players, there's tens of thousands of others that are rights holders of live events that make up the ecosystem. And in so doing, it really plays itself into a marketplace-driven business model.
I mean, that gives quite a few things to decompress there. So let's talk about the experiential side first. Technically, this is experiential media. We're in the business of experiential media with podcasting. Right? What does experiential services mean to you?
Yeah, so what it typically means in the marketing realm is when you're activating brands in a live event setting. So whether it's a sponsorship, whether it's, a lot of brands will create, if you're a liquor company, it's about getting the taste to the lips. So it's about doing things that actually let a user touch, feel, and be a part of your brand. And is usually considered in the live event space is what most people associate it with. And that's what we had. We had a business where we were activating, dozens, if not hundreds of live events every year.
Yeah, I mean, one of the cool things about experiences and being in the business of creating experiences is that it makes you very differentiated. It's very hard to be a competitor to replicate what you're doing. How is the competitive space in experiential marketing and experiential services?
Yeah, well, if you're talking back into the time when I had the agency, that there are a lot of companies that have pretty large experiential groups. What's cool about it, and just like a lot of the agency space, is there's a ton of smaller agencies. And I was based in New York at the time, so New York being kind of the media capital of the world, where a lot of the ad dollars were being allocated. Usually, when somebody has a marketing budget, they have paid media dollars, they have public relations dollars, they have traditional advertising dollars, and then oftentimes they'll have an experiential marketing budget. And in that way, there are a lot of smaller agencies. We were about a 70-person shop, but then there's also some of the big conglomerates. So if you think of any of the big advertising holding companies, they all have an experiential marketing division. But think about it. Think about how, like, when you have the Super Bowl, all of the brands activating at that big live event.
Absolutely. So with FestivalPass, this is a subscription base. Is it virtual experiences?
No, it's all live events. Yeah, so people pay a monthly subscription fee, and they receive credits in return for their monthly subscription, and they can use those credits to redeem for thousands of live events across music, film, food and wine, sports, theater, all the above.
That's really interesting because, as we come out of the pandemic, people are very hungry for experiences. They just want to live, and they're rushing to live again.
Yeah.
How's that experience been for you?
Yeah, so we launched the company right before the pandemic. So we spent the last year building the infrastructure, the data architecture, the technology, the relationships to be ready for the moment we're all about to fall into. Already where we are today, we're down in Austin, Texas, and we've seen a lot of things open up, especially in the music business. Things are opening up, and even some of the large music touring companies already have double the acts scheduled for 2022 than they did in 2019. So if there ever is a reference to the Roaring 20s, it's about to happen.
We've been hearing that about the Roaring 20s coming back into the 2020s. What does that mean for music and creatives? There's certain areas that are completely open. Ontario is just opening up again, so Torontonians are looking forward to getting into more than just patios, but actually indoor dining and indoor spaces and recreational experiences, right? Airbnb's has an experiential component to their listings, and that's going through the roof, right? People are looking for things to do. So how did that work with the music and performances? Because I can imagine during the pandemic, it's probably been a lot of things shut down, a lot of people who had to do a lot of different things. How have they lasted through this? Are they just restarting their doors and restarting things, or have they pivoted into online and they're coming back to it's the physical world?
Yeah. So first of all, you're correct. As the live event business effectively shut down for 9 to 12 months, but we've been seeing a ton of resurgence coming in. The pent up demand from the consumer side is massive, but even on the artist side, right? So if you really think about it, depending upon the level an artist is, they've spent the last 12 months not touring. What do performers like to do? They like to perform. So now they're in this place where they spent a year indoors or wherever they were, writing music, creating art, doing things they can do in there. And I know a lot of musicians myself that have been doing that. And right now they're just excited to go out and release a new album, get out and tour, tell people about it. And that's what's bringing the massive amount of events being planned for 2022 is because you have all these artists that have new content, new music, new things to share. And the way they do that is by getting out and performing.
Yeah, I mean, with the rise of like the creatives, as people are calling it, right? The people who create, artists and the tools for them, tools like everything from Gumroad to NFTs, allowing for new types of financing and new types of ways to activate their tribes and activate their fan base. Existing, people are saying that we're going through almost like a renaissance when it comes to like culture, because a whole bunch of new people are just creating for the first time. People who are creating are finding new ways to create and new ways to distribute their content, and everything's in kind of a flux. Would you say that, there's like a resurgence of like newness to the creative space, or is it, everyone trying to go back to the old of like?
Yeah, I think anytime you have disruption, there's always opportunity for change. And, in our world, in our business specifically, the way people have accessed tickets, if you want to call it that, entrance to live events has been very transactional for decades. So there's a lot of large primary ticketing companies, and they serve a purpose and they do a great job in managing the distribution of tickets. But at the end of the day, from the consumer side, it hasn't really been that social. So it's transactional versus social. So, I'm sure you forget about which names there are, but most of the time somebody buys a ticket, they don't even really know or care where they got the ticket as long as they get into the event. The reality is we're creating a social, frictionless way so they can actually have a bunch of experiences and community before they go to an event, while they acquire their ticket, and then continuously through to the event and then thereafter. So for us, it's a membership model that's all about building community, and it's about allowing people to really have a way to engage with the people that are their tribe, both pre, during, and post a live event.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that word community, because that's being thrown around a lot lately. It seems like the 2010s were all about social, these large social platforms and trying to activate a large social base. But it seems like everyone is now trying to go after community and building their own community, managing their own community, using tools to house their own community. Right? Like, what does community mean in terms of festivalPass, and how are you performing in that?
Yeah, so think about it. While our demographic, our niche based on the type of program. So, for example, Millennials and Gen Zs like a certain type of music. They like to go out. They're very experiential. And of course, the boomers or the Gen Xers might tend to be more in the sports category, the food and wine, or even music, that you tend to have a different age group for old rock and roll versus others. But the reality is Gen Zs and Millennials for years have been demanding a certain way to consume products. And the old traditional classic way from transactional ticketing is not the way. They're used to being able to allocate budget towards something and then gamify it to get the best deal. They're used to being able to commit to a subscription and understanding what the value is they're going to get out of that. And when you talk about community, the community side of experiential engagement is really, that's what it's all about. So when you talk to a millennial, they'd much rather spend their money on an experience than they would on a hard good. So we're really kind of taking all of that information and bringing it to the next level. We have, even on our investor group and our board, we have, the leading expert globally in millennials and Gen Zs who has validated the path of where we're going on our model. And another one of our investors sits on the board of a millennial bank, which is helping us understand how millennials and Gen Zs allocate and spend money. So there's a lot of data, a lot of information going into the why behind what we're building. So if that answers it, community really is a part of all of it.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It helps. Let's talk a little more about activating that base of millennials and Gen Z, because these two cohorts are really interesting in terms of cohort analysis, right? Like millennials are now aging, and they are by population and by age hold the least wealth. And currently, I think like millennials, like people under the age of 35 own less than 7% of US wealth, which is insane. And then Gen Z is the largest age cohort since the greatest generation in the 30s. I think about like 1 in 3 or about 30% of North America, the population, it fits into the Gen Z cohort. And as they're aging, not only is services adapting to how they utilize technology and perform, because they're the biggest active base, they're also set to inherit like $40 trillion worth of wealth as boomers, die off, to be honest, and families inherit properties and assets and things like that. So a lot of big name brands are now like bypassing millennials and almost trying to look and how they can activate Gen Z, because it's a larger lifespan, larger cohort, all those kind of things. What do you see as like the differentiators between Gen Z and the millennial market, and even like Gen Y? I think those are the in between, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I look at it in this way is I kind of already talked about the millennial side is they've already proven to be the experiential driven group who really want to go out and be a part of things live. That's, over 75, I think there's 75 million in the millennial set in the US. And of those 75 million, I forget the exact number, but over 2/3 of them have spent money on live event experiences. So it really is kind of a driving factor to how they experience life. On the Gen Z side, this really goes back in the financial side. So what we learned is just, more how Gen Zs tend to budget their dollars. It's kind of a fascinating concept where the millennial set, at least in some past studies, may not have traditionally been the budgeting crew because they just want to go out and have fun and experience things. But on the Gen Z side, even more so, we found that they just want to know how their life exists. So if they have X amount of dollars in monthly income, they have X for housing, and they in the bank accounts themselves, they actually allocate their dollars for certain things. And this is some of the research I mentioned about some of the banking information we have is that they might say, hey, my experiential life, my going out is going to be $100 a month. My food budget's going to be $200. My rent budget's going to be $500, and then whatever else of life exists. But they're very used to and very structured as a group on how they experience that and do that. But on top of it, they're very value oriented. So not only do they want to budget, but they want to get the most out of that budget. And that's kind of what led us to kind of play in the space we're in, is that by them committing to a monthly budget with us, we can provide them access to everything they'd ever want to do within one focused environment. And we can provide them more value because as a member, we're using our marketing leverage in order to get better deals for everybody, but at the same time, continuously adding membership value to them as a member. So no matter what, if they put $100 towards festivalPass on a monthly basis, they're going to cover their entire experiential budget and they're going to get a lot more value from it. So it really fits into the way they think.
I love the level of research you've done into these kind of communities, because usually people look at things from pain points and things that they wish they had, and they just launch the product and try to figure out afterwards who to activate for the product. You mentioned festivalPass. You've been thinking about this for a while, and it's really a culmination of like years of a startup experience and yourself. What about it has captured your interest the most and drives you forward?
Yeah, I mean, it really is those three aspects of the things that I'm passionate about. So I'm passionate about live events. I have been for 20 years. I personally love them myself. I love going. I love, and I'm not just one of those that say, I just want a music festival. I love going to a sporting event. I love going to Broadway theater. I love going to music shows. I love going to a food and wine event. So I actually love the experiences myself. So that's one. The other thing is data. So I've been living and breathing data for almost a decade now. And what excites me is when I can understand how to build a better product and experience using data. So a lot of what we're building on the back end will continue to grow and be more and more powerful over time. If you can think of in the traditional TV world or movie world, Netflix has a recommendation engine. So So even though there's thousands of pieces of content, you're only presented with 20 or 30. We can argue whether or not they're the right 20 or 30 that everybody gets, but you, Ravi, get a different set of information when you log on to Netflix than I do. And we have the same model. So basically, when you log on to festivalPass and we have tens of thousands of events that are available to redeem your credits for, I'll be looking at recommended events for me based upon my location, based upon what I did in the past, based upon the friends I have, based upon my demographic. And it will allow a lot of discovery for me. And if you, again, using the Netflix reference, I've watched a ton of movies that I never thought I even knew I was going to watch, solely because they were presented to me at the time that happened. So I think of that same thing in live events. So when somebody has gone to see, like here in Austin, the Black Pumas, or they like a certain type of band, and then all of a sudden somebody with a similar sound is playing at a smaller venue and it only costs 6 credits to go, and it presents to me, I might be like, wow, that's great. I'll give it a shot. 6 credits, no big deal. Let's go check it out. And that really creates a discovery engine, not only for the consumer, but for all of the artists. In the world of kind of democratizing accessibility, usually we live in a world where the one who's got the biggest marketing dollars gets to promote something and gets to sell out. Whereas if you can create this discovery for all levels of artists at all types of venues, yes, I might be a consumer that goes to, a 40,000 person arena and sees a big mainstream band, but the next night I might go to a little small venue and get a really special experience because somebody told me about it. Yeah, I mean, the way you kind of make it sound is like, it's almost like an agent of discovery, right? Like I'm pre-committing to go out X amount of times or, for X amount of experiences this month. And I get to choose. It's like, okay, I have these credits. Where am I going to spend them? It kind of forces you almost to participate in the world rather than being sheltered at home. What happens if you don't use those credits? They roll over? They do roll over. Yep. Yeah. So one of the things that through my experience over at MoviePass, I don't know if you know the business model at MoviePass, but the one thing I promised myself, I said I would never personally found and build a business that when I asked my consumer to do more of what I originally asked them to do, that I lose money. So that is a thematic that is impassioned through me. So I want the consumers to do more. I want them to have fun, but we've built a business model. So when they do, they get value and we make money. So it's a win-win-win all around. The venue or artist gets more people. We get a little bit of a margin and the consumer gets more value. Did you say you were involved with MoviePass? Yeah, I was their interim chief data officer through my company. So they hired my company because of my past experience in data with large data sets in the entertainment side. And I was given the opportunity to go in there and understand it. And they had a great product market fit, but not the right business model. That's very interesting because, I remember MoviePass in its height, people were like, this is an amazing concept, but how come it just fell off really quickly? What do you think there? That it was any learning curves you took away from that? Tons. Yeah, I know exactly what not to do. The product market fit was great. Consumers loved it, but they didn't build the model where it was a win-win for everybody. So when it was a win for the consumer, it was a lose for the business. And there wasn't a balance there. And there was a lot of ways that business could have been fixed. But there were some headwinds. The film industry, the studio industry is, it's a hard industry to kind of make changes in. And also there's a lot to it. We could have a whole podcast just on that, but what I did, I took a lot of learnings out of it. I understand a business model that works. This credit-based currency model is super helpful to make that successful, as well as partnering with all of the inventory owners in order to have a win-win-win all around. It's really interesting because, you talked about MoviePass being like a dual-sided marketplace, and where one side it was weighted more towards one side as a benefit, and especially the businesses kind of suffered for it. With FestivalPass, like with so many different categories of experiences and different players, how do you manage all that? Is it self-serve? Do people running experiences come in and just launch with you, or do they partner with you? How is that process for people who are running experiences? Sure. I was going to say yes, yes, and yes. So there is a self-serve element to somebody that might have one or a dozen small events that they want to come and make them available to our members. They can go to our partner section of the website and enter that event, or at least reach out and have us onboard them. But in order to get significant volume of events, we have lots of other partners. So we partner with venues, we partner with groups of venues, we partner with ticket owners, ticket rights holders, big venue owners. So it really comes from various places, primary ticket aggregators. So at the end of the day, we're not looking to be another primary ticketing company. There's plenty of them out there. We want to help them bring more people to their events by engaging in our membership base. So as we grow our membership and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it becomes it's already a self-selection, as you even said in your last comment, was these are people that have chosen to commit to going out. They've chosen to live, we call it live life live. They've chosen to live life live, and they're high frequency event goers. So once we have, we keep growing our membership base, but, we'll be in the millions eventually someday. And when we have millions of people in the US that have self-selected to be the ones that go out, they're going to be the most active, most desirable group of people that event owners and venues want to reach. So by listing on our environment, they're going to be able to, quote unquote, fill their seats or have more attendance to their events and help people discover them. And one thing you'll find is a lot of people that produce lots of events, of course, they're going to have a certain percentage that sell out and nobody can get tickets for. But then, the good lion's share of the events they produce, still have 20%, 30% of the tickets that never sell. So we want to empower kind of an overall portfolio model so that everybody wins. The venue wins, the ticket seller wins, the owner of the ticket wins, the artist wins, the consumer wins, and we win.
So in building like a dual-sided marketplace, there's a classic debate. In building it, do we focus on the supply first or the demand first, and then go to the other side? So I'll leave that question to you. Which did you focus on first, the demand and supply, and who is the demand and supply?
Sure. So there's even more nuance to that. So I don't know how much time we have, but when you think of a marketplace, and one of the reasons we even decided to build what we're building is there's really 4 core elements of a successful marketplace. I'll kind of go through them quick, but to give some analogies. So if you think of a local, they call it a route density marketplace. Think of Uber, Lyft, right? So as long as there's enough drivers in Toronto and enough people that want to get a ride in Toronto, you can have a marketplace solely within the route density of Toronto. And then you have global marketplaces like an Airbnb, whereas if people want to engage in a marketplace like that, they do so because of the large variety of inventory that happens globally. So I can go away to a trip nearby. I can go to France. I can go to California. And as more inventory enters that marketplace, it becomes more and more sticky. That's one piece. The thing that's cool about festivalPass is it's both. So when people sign up, they pay a subscription, and most of it, we expect the majority of the usage will be local. They're going to go to their local bands. They're going to go to the local sporting event, the local community beer and brat festival. But every couple months, they might venture out and go to Coachella or go to ACL or go to South by Southwest or, go to a Giants Dallas Cowboys game in a different state. So when they do that, they're engaging in both a global density model and a route density model. Second thing is the type of inventory, and cut me off when I'm going too deep here. But there's heterogeneous inventory and homogeneous inventory. So the Uber, Lyfts of the world, that's homogeneous. You really don't care what car you're in as long as it's clean and safe and all that kind of stuff. Of course, they have different tiers, and you can get an SUV versus another car, but that's kind of irrelevant to the success of the marketplace. And then you have heterogeneous, like Airbnb, which is, it's that global density of adding new unique properties that then make it more and more exciting. So we're more of a heterogeneous model because live events are unique, right? So the more unique live events we have, the better and better we provide a moat and excitement for our users. And then you get into the other two pieces. One is volume versus price of transaction. And luckily for us is we both have a generally high ticket price and high volume, meaning that because it's a live event, it's different than a Netflix at $9 a month or $12 a month. Because if you go to an event, you traditionally might pay $100 for a ticket or $50 for a ticket. So there's an idea that you can have both the more expensive tickets, and then you can have the cheaper ones, which is that new band around the corner that might be $10 or $5 or whatever it is. So we're lucky to have the flexibility of both of those. And then a stickiness of the marketplace. Why go to your marketplace versus others? But you asked that overall question to understand supply or demand. And the answer is you need both. But because we're both route density and global density, we can strategically plan that. So how do we do that? First of all, the beauty of living in today's world of consumer marketing, we can target where our users come from. So when we set out and started building membership, we picked the cities where we knew we can get the best events. So we have, route density building in Central Texas, in New York, in Los Angeles, in Nashville, in Phoenix, in LA. So as we build more members in a certain community, then we go out and use business development efforts or some of our API-driven data feeds in order to pull inventory from those specific communities. So we can build on a route density level. So each ecosystem, if we have 50,000 subscribers in Toronto and we have hundreds of events every month in Toronto, people are happy. And then once we have 10, 20, 30 different markets that are self-sustaining in their own right, then everybody starts commingling and building into a global density. Does that answer the question?
I think you went above and beyond. I love the thought process behind this and the level of depth of you answered it, because now that opens up a whole bunch of other questions. Like you said, like with companies like Uber and those kind of marketplaces, if you run a purely virtual marketplace, you can instantly scale because it doesn't matter who's coming on and what time they're coming on, because everything is available to whoever in a global place. But if someone, from California signs up to FestivalPass and there's nothing going on around them, they're instantly turned off and most likely will never come again. It's one of the problems with like the network effect of a marketplace. There's nothing to activate right away. I think it was Facebook discovered like average user, 6 seconds. If they don't find anything of value, they're gone. Right. So how do you control for that? Do you landlock or like geo-lock certain areas? So like people only sign up if they live in a certain area. Do you activate a location by location? How do you scale that?
Yeah. So we think of it as a kind of a process, right? So people come to our website and they can sign up as a free member. Before they start taking their credit card out and spending dollars, they can come explore, right? So once they've signed up as a free member, they're part of our community, but they don't have any credits to redeem for stuff, right? So they can explore and see what's going on. But once they do that, they're then kind of part of our communication system. So they can receive notifications as great events come up in their neighborhood, because we'll know their zip code, we know where they are. So if they happen to sign up from Boise, Idaho, and all of our events are in LA, New York, Chicago, Central Texas, then they'll just kind of live in that world as a free member for a while until they decide to travel to a location where we have a lot of events, or we start filling events in a certain market. And that's part of our own analytics, right? So if I see all of a sudden we have 1,000 new members in Boise, Idaho, you're damn right. We're going to start going out to everybody in Boise, Idaho and getting a lot of great events for them.
Let's talk about the consumer behavior. Unlike Uber, like someone might travel to go to an event, right? You catch a flight to go to a music concert. How does that play into effect? Like just because an event is not nearby, how does that affect how you activate the user base? Like, do you find that most of your people want to travel or want something more local, or is it like a mix and blend? Different cohorts want different things. What's the data?
Yeah, well, I'll let you know as the world opens up and we have more data. But within 30 days or so, all of our members will be able to access over 600,000 hotel room nights at discounts much larger than they'd get anywhere else online, because they're a member and it's not publicly available rates. So that's a way we can cater to that environment, right? So somebody signs up as a member, they might pay $100 a month to be a part of festivalPass, or as low as $9 a month. And they can use their credits to book hotel room nights wherever they go. That alone should cover the cost of their membership, based upon the, if they take one trip, they'll save hundreds of dollars. So that enables something that's exciting. And then, of course, as time goes on and some of the big events that you would likely travel to, we'll start building really cool packages and the ability for somebody to kind of book the room nights, the show, maybe a meet and greet, cool party, all that kind of stuff.
No, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize you were going like full service almost in like the experiential model. So how much is a membership, and is there a tiered membership level model?
There is. So the lowest, it's a free is the lowest, right? So it's free, and people can, even if they're a free member, they can earn credits by inviting their friends. So, and anytime their friends join up, they get credits. So it creates this viral marketing aspect. So our members become ambassadors and kind of a little army of marketers. But outside of that, the lowest paid tier is $9. And currently the highest paid tier is $99. So at $9, you get 6 credits a month. At $99, you get 100 credits per month. So if you can quickly do the math, you'll realize that it's cheaper per credit the more you commit. And that's just a function of the business, right? So the more you're willing to commit to being, part of this ecosystem at a higher level, the less you'll be paying to attend these events.
So the credit system, does it work dollar for dollar? Like how does the credits work? And you mentioned like hotels and experiences. Well, if you're paying $9 a month, I can imagine it's only like a certain amount of capital. Do you pay for the rest of it through you? How does that work?
Well, that's why I encourage people to go for the higher tier so they get more credits. But even if we haven't launched it yet, but in the next couple months, people will be able to buy credit packs in case, hey, they want to book a hotel and they only have 50 credits, but the hotel costs 90 credits. They could buy more credits on the spot. And what's interesting is the credits will be directly correlated to the membership tier you're on. So people aren't going to be able to fully gamify it and be on the lower tier and then buy hundreds of credits because they'll be paying the price per credit of the lower tier. If they were a $100 a month committed member, they can buy a credit pack for another 100 extra at the same price they were on their lower priced credit commit. I don't know if that answers the question,
no, it does.
But it's
go ahead.
The one thing you answered is it's dollar for dollar. So the beauty of data is that it enables us to really understand how to create value for the consumer. So as time goes on and we build more data sets, those who are more valuable to the community will get more value. So, you in Toronto may see a slightly different credit price for a specific event than I might, based upon a lot of factors, right? So, of course, the first factor is going to be what is the face value of that ticket. The second factor is our internal margin. How do I know what we pay for it as a company? So the ability to kind of correlate that, because some event we might get a 20% margin, some event we might get a 50% margin because we either pre-bought tickets to that event or we're putting more promotion behind it and therefore we're getting a better deal. So we're going to be working through a lot of that over time. But also if you're a higher lifetime value to the community, meaning you're already been a member for 12 months and you're already a profitable customer for our business, you may get a slight discount on the credits for a specific event because we want to encourage you to continue to be engaged. If you are posting more photos, if you sign in and give us but provide your Instagram Connect, your Facebook Connect into your account, and you happen to have 50,000 friends and have shared a few posts about an event you went to on your social, you might get lower credits as well. So the idea is, how do we convince you to be a better partner in the community? And we can do that with incentives. And some of those incentives is a different price to attend and or reward credits.
Yeah, I was going to say with your credit packs and that kind of system, it almost reminds me of a lot of these phone games like Clash of Clans that a lot of younger people, especially the Gen Z, grew up on. right? And that kind of like primed them for user behavior. I know Zynga with Farmville, built on top of Facebook, kind of prime millennials, early on, and how to use credit cards and buy things online, right? Like games have almost driven kind of buying buying patterns and behavior. As platforms kind of emerge, do you feel that like that kind of model, like almost a gamified model, is like piggybacking on like the natural instincts that people are used to now? Because I think Gen Z is like super comfortable buying things on phones, whereas millennials still want to buy things off of laptops or on PC, right? How do you what do you think about like buying behavior and when it comes to experiences, right? Like.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say gamification is part of it, right? So, especially because especially Gen Z, but both millennials and Gen Z want value. So how do they commit? And then with that commitment, find the best way to get the most value out of that same price. So they're a little more open to saying, well, why not? Why don't I tell 50,000 people on my Instagram account that I'm going to see, pick your favorite band, so-and-so at a specific arena. I'm trying to think of the Toronto ones that I've been to, more whether it's at the Maple Leafs arena or whatever it is. But once they do so, they get value for it. So they're like, why not? If I'm paying my $49.99 a month, a couple of small things I can do, I get a lot more value. And if we enable that to happen, it's great. We also have some other cool things we're working on from the artist side. I hate to use the word badges, but when you talk about gamification, there's such a thing as badges. So we're going to allow users, not only after they purchase a tier, but to enable some kind of additional badge, if you will, for their favorite artist or their favorite sports team or their favorite whatever. And by doing so, they'll get extra benefit from it. And we'll be able to create things that they traditionally couldn't get anywhere else.
No, that's super interesting. Do you, for the future, do you imagine ever if your system could help push, festival holders or experience holders towards a certain sets of values? Because especially the Gen Z market, even millennials actually care a lot about social values when it comes to their buying experience and what they interact with. Things like, like Burning Man for years have done like leave zero waste behind. It's kind of their philosophy, and it really speaks to a type of personality. Do you feel like, by being like the pipeline platform that directs people towards different events, you can hold event holders more, more accountable for their effects on the environment, things like that?
Yeah, and the answer is yes. And I think part of it isn't necessarily being the police of what to do, but it's more incentivizing. So it's more about sharing within our environment some of the policies of certain events that may appeal to a certain user set. It's also, excuse me, from the social side, maybe not the event itself, but enabling our membership base as it grows to engage as a community in some causes they care about. So, we've thought about enabling brands to participate in certain initiatives that we push forward within the system that then would get their brand in front of a group of people. But by doing so, it's allowing our user base to vote on, where some of those funds would go. Possibly it's here's an event. You've seen some of these models before, but once you have a membership base, it's easy to act upon them. So if you want to go to an event and it costs 48 credits, do you want to donate 2 credits to St. Jude's Hospital? Whatever that is. So we'll get there on that process. It's really about letting the consumers, or our members, I like to say, instead of consumers, tell us what they want.
Yeah, no, speaking of features models, one of the concerns about behavior, right, is that it takes about 6 weeks to develop a habit. And then after it becomes it becomes ingrained into you. And after a year of staying home, there's tons of people who just don't want to go out, actually. That even though the drive is there, they're just so comfortable because they've made themselves comfortable. They've turned their house into like little golden palaces. Some people have built like spas and things in there, especially if you have the means. there's a certain cohort, of course, that wants to explosively go out and experience that. But there's also a large portion of the population that doesn't. Do you ever think that there's going to be like a large market for like virtual events moving forward, other than just like from the pandemic? Fortnite, for instance, made first ways of holding concerts in game and creating virtual experiences. Do you feel that virtual experiences are going to go by the wayside, or do you think people are trained for that to want both, right, in person and virtual, and have this kind of hybrid experiences?
Yeah. So definitely can answer that. So when we started and launched the company right before the pandemic happened, you go back to March, April, June of 2020. I'm trying to think of the year we're in. 2020, the whole world shifted. So anybody and everybody that had any kind of business related to entertainment immediately shifted to virtual. So that had a bunch of positive and negative effects. So for us, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, so I've been kind of trained by not only the groups I'm part of, but also the peer groups. Is you just can't always chase the shiny nickel. You always need to figure out what the idea of pivot might be, but at the same time, if you're just chasing something, you're never going to sustain yourself for the future. So the answer is we chose on our side not to be the infrastructure through which live events happen, meaning that virtual events happen. So meaning that we're not going to go out and try and build a new technology to be the producer of those streamed events. But the way we built our community and the way we built our marketplace, because we're a marketplace at the end of the day, is whether something's a live event or a virtual event, we will welcome that into our marketplace. Second thing that I think is going to change the concept of virtual is because so many people built technologies and implemented technologies very quickly in something that traditionally wouldn't have been available before. So now the cost of accessing the production in order to do so has gone down so much, you're going to see a lot more availability. So for example, just in the US alone, there's about 4,000 live independent music venues. So not the big stadium arena shows, which are going to put hundreds of thousands of dollars anyway into building video and multiple camera angles in order to create a stream. So that's going to happen regardless. But those distribution outlets are likely going to be kind of much larger spaces for that, whether they're turned into movies, whether they're turned into pay-per-view, or whatever it is. But the 4,000 independent venues that have 300 shows every year all across America and Toronto and everywhere else, that's exciting. They didn't have cameras in for every show back in the day. But now for a tiny bit of money and many companies that went in and sold them the fact that they'll give them the equipment for free, you now have 300 performances going through one venue in Austin or in LA or whatever it is. So what I find exciting is when you can almost make the live experience in itself, it could be virtual, but it's still a live experience. So for example, things we look to hopefully do in the future is somebody comes onto our platform, and of course all the live events are available there. So they can spend 30 credits and go to see their favorite band at a local venue in Austin, Texas, or in New York City. But there's also 300 or more other virtual shows going on at the same time. So I might choose to hang out at home one night, get a few friends to come over, and I might go see one of my favorite bands. If I live in New York, down in Austin, I might see a couple sets, only costs 5 credits, 10 credits. Then I might pop over to the Viper Room in LA, see a couple sets, then see who's playing in Nashville, see a couple sets, and I might have an amazing evening watching live music in the venues that I love because I'm sitting here at home virtually. So to me, that's a new kind of evolution towards what virtual can be. It's not just the pre-produced made for TV show that people are kind of sick of watching.
Yeah, no, I love that because there's actually running into what I was going to ask next is like these hybrid events, right? Meant for virtual and for in person. Are you tracking any kind of like technologies or anything cool frameworks that people are using to like bridge the gap? So if you're in person at a concert or a conference, you can interact with the virtual audience. or the virtual audience can at least, feel like they're part of the crowd. Is there any kind of like that kind of experiential setting for like bridging that gap between the two kind of cohorts?
I mean, there is, and I wouldn't know the names off the top of my head, but I do come across things often where a lot of people are trying to bridge that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have not yet seen something on a mass scale that makes it easy. And maybe I'm just a live event, authentic live event fan, meaning that when I'm there, I want to enjoy it. But there are many companies and technologies that are trying to do that. So somebody could be virtual and feel like they're with their friends who are physically at the event, and both can interact. We'll see. I personally haven't experienced something that I love. I see that easier to implement in conferences, when you can't get to Vegas for CES or something like that.
Yeah, there was this really weird company I met a few years ago, and they were trying to do this way before the pandemic. But they literally, their system was like, we're gonna have like a bunch of cameras all over this venue, and then the floors are gonna have like these light up spots. And the physical audience just kind of goes through, but for the virtual, they have avatars. They walk around, and as they walk around, the spaces light up. So it makes you feel like the virtual person is there next to you. And then for the virtual people, they have the camera, so they feel like they're part of the event, and they're walking around it as an avatar, as a ghost almost, right? And they were trying to like create this hybrid kind of event, and this is way back before like the pandemic or before like virtual events were really taking off. So it just like. For me, I'm like, this is kind of creepy because as people who can see me, I can't see them, but you're trying to make it seem like I'm being, they're around me, like literally a ethereal ghost around me. But looking back,
I was just going to say, I think things like that are cool. They're fun, PR-driven events that sound like really cool to experience. But for me, everything has to be commercially driven, right? So am I going to spend an extra $20 to have that experience instead of watching my favorite band? I don't know. I just haven't seen something at mass that will cover the expense of building the technology.
No, fair enough. Absolutely. I think that's a lot of fringe things, but this is so I love this conversation because we just kind of blew past this hour just talking about how people are going to, be going back to experiences and transitioning. Right. How about yourself? Like, have you started going out yet? What kind of events have you been going to?
All the above. Yeah. Yes. So even here in Austin, I went to, a friend is a country singer, even though I came from New York and I was a country fan, but a friend and neighbor is a singer. He played at ACL Live last Saturday night. Went to that. It was a fantastic event. Amazing. Even went to an EDM show, Tiesto, if you know Tiesto. He played out by the airport to 5,000 people. Great event. It was awesome. I was in Vegas for a conference last week, and we, even it was a concert about the artist that died at 27. So Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain. It was an impersonation show, but it was fun. So the idea is like people are out, people are listening to live music, people are engaging. Here in Austin, the big football club opened, Austin FC. It's been sold out ever since the day it opened. So people here are going out. And not only that, in the southern states, there's a lot of outdoor space here. So, here, South Florida, other places where there's outdoor, it's really, really happening already. But I look at 2022 as being like, where everywhere in North America is going to be, just going out every opportunity they can.
Perfect. I'll leave you with this last question. Being a New Yorker that was in Austin, and we hear a lot of great things about Austin, but what do you feel like the differences between experiences are between Austin and New York? A big metropolitan city like New York has a lot of different things going on, but Austin, right, is known as a cultural hub now.
Yeah, I mean, Austin really is a lot about the music scene. So, different than New York, where there's plenty of great music and there's amazing music showcases. Anybody and everybody in Austin is here, or at least before the last year came, but mostly because they love music. So anytime you're out getting a beer at a brewery, there's live music playing. If you are walking down the street on South Congress and you're getting a slice of pizza, there's music playing. In the airport, there's music playing. So it's just kind of wild that anywhere and everywhere you go in Austin, there's always live music. And it could be just an acoustic guitar behind you, or it could be, you know, full on, you know, 50,000 people. So that to me has been such a differentiator. And I've almost never met anybody in any industry that doesn't love live music here. You know, you can talk to a lawyer who has nothing to do with the music business, and he loves live music. He's in a band. You go to the doctor and, you know, get a checkup, and he's talking about the show he just saw last night. So it's just culture of live music is just fascinating. And then add in technology and add in all the venture capital money flying here. And, you know, it's a fascinating growth city that, for the good or the bad, is going to be significantly changed in the decade to come.